It is time to turn the blank canvas behind me here into my dream kitchen. This is the first of the kitchen renovation videos, and later in the video we'll be getting into how I finalized the design that you see here and a little bit of cabinet making. But first, let's take a moment and appreciate just how far this space has come. When I moved into the building, this area had this awful old makeshift DIY bar and DIY in a really bad way. I was chatting with some neighbors recently, and apparently just before the building was abandoned, the Ukrainian mafia was using the space as an illegal nightclub.
You couldn't make this stuff up.
Now, obviously I can't verify that, and probably not a good idea to poke around to try to find too many details.
Forget about it.
But that would explain a lot about the condition of the building. There were numerous leaks in the roof, dripping water all over the floor in here. So before we could do any work in this area, we had to replace the entire roof. Then of course we had to demo that old shoddy bar. With the space opened up, we could frame out the walls that are going to go behind the kitchen cabinets and hide all the rough electrical and plumbing for the kitchen. Lastly, we installed these beautiful maple floors throughout the whole building, and that brings us up to the present. Now, last fall we looked at kind of a rough draft model, and that's going to be a good starting point. When I designed this initial model, there was a rectangular HVAC duct running vertically up this corner. It turns out we were able to remove that HVAC duct, so that frees up a bunch of space in this corner, and we got to figure out what to do with it. The second design decision that I've got to make, because I've honestly just kind of been going in circles on it, is whether to go with a separate cooktop and wall oven like you see in the original model here, or to just do a range that combines the cooktop burners and the oven in one appliance. And along with that decision is something else that you guys suggested, and that is whether I should move the cooktop or range, whatever I pick, to the island so that when you're using it, you'd actually be facing out into the living room. And the third thing is the design of the island, because if we move the cooktop or range to the island, it might have to change. So in order to make these decisions, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a very, very visual person, and I kind of just need to see what the options are in front of me, and then it's much easier for me to make up my mind. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time here in SketchUp, model up some ideas for the different options, and then we can take a look at it, and hopefully we'll figure something out. Well, that took way longer than I expected, and it's not a whole lot different than the original, but you can see here I had a ton of iterations of this that I went back and forth between. The final model I ended up with was this one right here. So as for the corner over here, I'm basically gonna have like a slide out pantry that just comes out over the countertop, and you can access like pots and pans, and there'll be hanging racks inside there that can be tucked away. And if the way I described that doesn't make sense, well, I will be showing it to you in the next video because we're gonna make it. As for the range and stovetop, I decided I'm gonna move the range to the island. I think you guys were right there. It'll be a much better flow, and I wanna have the possibility of actually filming in the kitchen. I'm a YouTuber. Everything should be filmable in this house. Anyone ever wanted to film a cooking show or something like that in this building? I'm not gonna do that, don't worry, but somebody might. Also, since we're doing the concrete countertops, and there are reasons that you don't usually go over 8 feet with concrete, I added a butcher block section to the island so that it could be a 10-foot island. The microwave is gonna be tucked into the island, and I also think, although it's not shown, we're gonna go with a double wall oven. As for that sort of floating table from the original design, I'd still kind of like to do something like that, and I went through a bunch of iterations and was just spinning my wheels. Since I couldn't make my decision now, I kind of just punted it. I made a basic island shape that would provide a platform I could build onto later if I want. Now I've got to redo that model in a software called Mozaik, which will actually allow me to cut those cabinets out from plywood on the CNC. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of details because it honestly took me a lot of time to figure out how to to use this software properly. But essentially, once you figure out how to use the program, you can drag and drop cabinets onto a floor plan, kind of like an IKEA kitchen planner if you've ever used that. Once you lay everything out, it will automatically generate the cut list for all the parts of the cabinets, lay everything out on pieces of plywood for you, and generate the CNC code for you. So it is super cool in that way. So before I actually cut into the $130 sheet cabinet grade plywood, I'm going to use a $30 piece of MDF and cut a cabinet out of that just to make sure that I've got the process figured out. So let's head down to the CNC and start on that test cabinet. So we got to stop this before we even get started. The datas we cut in the last pass are off by about 3/4 of an inch, just shifted. And not sure how that happened. Got to figure that out. Try to recut them. This is why you do a test one. We'll see what happens. And now it is off in the X direction. I'm not sure what we're gonna do now. I don't know if it's the software or the machine. I think it's probably something in the machine, something needs tightening, or this is just getting frustrating. Got a new piece of MDF on here. Gonna give it a third try. I think it was getting some racking because the belts maybe weren't tight, so I've tightened up the belts on all the motors so that they can change directions without racking. Hopefully that fixes the problem. We'll see. Finally, success. And let me show you real quick what the problem was. These are supposed to be symmetrical sides of the cabinet, and it moved about a 1/2 inch between these two cuts. Now let's come over to the ones where it worked out. These two are perfectly symmetrical, and that's what we want, because if these slots and grooves aren't symmetrical, then when you assemble the cabinet, it's gonna be all kinds of wonky. I just realized there's actually 2 more sheets that need to be cut out, because that was 3/4 inch material, and some of the parts have to be cut out of 1/4 inch, which we're cutting now, and 1/2 inch. So we're gonna knock those out real quick, and then we'll get to assembling this cabinet, and cross your fingers, it'll all go together smooth. Looks like it came out correctly. That's a win. For those of you who are wondering how this was held down, I just used double-sided tape here. It holds pretty well, as you can see. There we go. That kept it down so it didn't go flying all over the place from the blade of spinning death. Before we go further, we've got a word from this video's amazing sponsor, Simply Safe. They just sent me this new wireless outdoor security camera, so we're gonna unbox this thing and install it. That is super sleek. Look at that. It's mounted on magnets, and that is just super satisfied. I just do this for the whole ad read. So apparently its battery lasts 4 to 6 months, which is awesome because you don't want to be recharging your outdoor camera all the time. I'm going to install this out front. Nice, high, safe, secure location for it. But also, I can just reach right outside these windows that need to be replaced at some point and grab it whenever I do need to charge this every 4 to 6 months. Like all the devices in the SimpliSafe system, it is super easy to install this. It's just pop this little back piece off, 2 screws through that into the wall, twist this back on, and then boom. Did I mention I like those magnets? A little expanding glue just to make sure that those stay tight. Let me tell you the specs. 140-degree field of view. It's got night vision, a built-in spotlight, 8x zoom, and it's got a 2-way mic so you can talk to people outside through the camera. How cool is that? This outdoor security camera is the perfect addition to SimpliSafe's awesome lineup of security devices. This whole building, my home and livelihood, is protected by SimpliSafe. I love the system. It's just so easy to set up and gives me peace of mind. So if you're in the market for a new security system, head over to simplisafe.com/Modustrial. You'll get at least 30% off of your new SimpliSafe system. So thanks again to SimpliSafe for sponsoring the video. And now let's get back into it. First thing to assemble is the drawer. Just love how these slots, hopefully, should make everything really easy to put together. So just did a dry fit and it went together like 95% great. Found one mistake. For some reason, the program output the back panel in 1/4 inch plywood, but it made the dado for the back panel 3/8 of inches. So this thing kind of wobbles around inside the slot. And this is just one of those things when you're learning to use software. Hey, what are you doing here? He is not supposed to be down here. He somehow got through the plastic barrier. A little Houdini for an 18-year-old. We're gonna go put him back. And then we'll finish explaining this. So as I was saying, probably some parameter in the software that I just need to figure out, check some box wrong. I'm not really sure, but somehow it didn't match up. Got to make sure we take care of that before we get to the real thing. But for this one, I'll just get a little shim to put in the dado, make it a little thicker. I am gonna try to use this, even if it's not the greatest cabinet in the world. It'll be perfectly functional for the workshop.
She ain't mine, but she look fine. Gonna take some time, gonna make her mine, gonna make her mine. I'm the man, I got the plan. When it hits the fan, do all I can, do all I can. When she lets her hair down, she drives me wild, and she looks in my eyes. Hell yeah!
So let's chat hardware decisions for a minute. On this one, I just kind of used whatever hardware I had lying around, but for the real kitchen, I want top quality stuff, and I could actually use a little input from you guys on it. Starting with the decisions that have been made, I'm gonna be using these Bloom undermount drawer slides. They're soft close. I love soft close on everything. We'll also be going with soft close door hinges. So how we close the doors is decided, but you gotta get them open too. So with drawer pulls, I wanna keep everything clean, minimalist, and modern. One option I like is these little matte black finger pulls. They just sit inside the cabinet edge like that. So they're real subtle, and they'll match the matte black cabinet material I'm going with really, really well. The other option I'm considering is just no pulls at all. These undermount drawer slides actually have these adapters that let you do push to open. So what do you guys think? No pulls, push to open, or the little matte black pulls? Or maybe you can even get crazy and do both. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Oh, and ROCKLER has agreed to provide all the hardware for this project, so much love to them for that support. There'll be a link in the description if you want to check any of this stuff out. Now that we've got the test cabinet successfully assembled, it's time for the real deal. Let's head out to the local lumber store and pick up a whole ton of plywood. 80 pounds a sheet, and yeah, it's probably gonna be pretty close to an actual ton, huh? I am not really sure what kind of plywood we're gonna get. Definitely gonna go with some nicer stuff because this is my kitchen, which I'm guessing also means it's gonna be a little bit on the expensive side. While we're here, it's fun to do a little window shopping. How long is that piece, do you know?
43 feet.
43 feet of babinga. They got this 20-foot piece of babinga. This thing, the grain is just crazy. It's not even real. So we got all kinds of different plywood here. What we kind of want to look for, you know, maple and pre-finished. Yeah, this is pre-finished maple. This actually may be, although this is 7-ply, I really wanted to go for Baltic birch, which is 13-ply. 7-ply is nice, but you get the real thin layers. It's a lot more stable. It just looks a lot nicer. One other option you can do is an MDF core on the plywoods. MDF is kind of underrated. Like, I think people associate it with cheap furniture, but actually most like super high-end kitchens have really dense MDF. A lot of people confuse it with particle board, but MDF is denser material than particle board. As long as you got a veneer, something on the edge to waterproof it, it is a super sturdy material. 26 of the 3/4 pre-finished maple, and then 10 of the 1/2-inch Baltic birch. 3403. That is the most plywood I've ever bought in my life. Now, I'm gonna obviously have all this delivered because you don't put 26 sheets on top of the GTI. So I'll see you guys back at home. Well, we were supposed to have a whole bunch of footage of the lumber being delivered, and we had that footage, but this guy deleted it. Why would you do that, Bruce? Why would you do that? But anyway, that footage is gone. So now we're gonna skip ahead to the future, and I guess I'll just give you a sneak preview of the next video because I have started actually building the cabinets on the CNC. I've got a ton of work cut out for me now to break down 40 sheets of plywood on the CNC, make all the cabinets. We'll get to that in the next video, so make sure you're subbed, belled, you know the whole deal. Thank you guys for watching, following. It means so much to me. That's it for this time, and I will see you next time.